So we are at the last chapter of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is chapter 12 called Alice's Advice. And here's her picture to start us off with this chapter. Here, cried Alice, forgetting how large she had grown in the last few minutes. She jumped up in such a hurry that she tipped over the jury box with the edge of her skirt, sending all the jurymen onto the heads of the crowd below. There they lay, sprawling around. "Oh, I beg your pardon," she exclaimed, and began picking them up again as fast as she could. "The trial cannot proceed," said the king in a very stern voice, "until all the jurymen are back in their proper places." "All," he repeated, looking hard at Alice. Alice looked at the jury box and saw that she had put the lizard in head downward. The poor little thing was waving its tail all around, unable to move. Alice lifted it and put it right. After the jury had a moment to recover, they quickly started writing out a history of the accident. The lizard, too overcome to do anything, sat with its mouth open, gazing up into the roof of the court. "What do you know about this business?" the king said to Alice. "Nothing," said Alice. "Nothing whatever?" persisted the king. "Nothing whatever," said Alice. "That's very important," the king said, turning to the jury. They were just beginning to write this down on their slates when the White Rabbit interrupted. "Unimportant, your Majesty means, of course," he said in a very respectful tone, but frowning and making faces at him as he spoke. "Unimportant, of course, I meant," the king said, and then went on mumbling to himself, "Important, unimportant, unimportant, important," as if he were trying to decide which word sounded best. Some of the jury wrote it down important, and some wrote unimportant. Alice could see this, but it doesn't matter a bit, she thought to herself. At this moment, the king, who had been for some time busily writing in his notebook, called out, "Silence!" and read out from his book, "Rule number 42, all persons more than a mile high must leave the court." Everybody looked at Alice. "I'm not a mile high," said Alice. "You are," said the king. "Nearly 2 miles high," added the queen. "Well, I won't go. Besides, that's not a regular rule. You invented it just now." "It's the oldest rule in the book," said the king. "Then it should be rule number 1, not 42, said Alice. The king turned pale and shut his notebook. "Consider your verdict," he said to the jury in a low, trembling voice. And here's a picture of Alice arguing with him. "There's more evidence to come yet, please, your Majesty," said the White Rabbit, jumping up in a hurry. "This paper has just been picked up." "What's in it?" said the queen. "I haven't opened it yet," said the White Rabbit. "But it seems to be a letter written by the prisoner to somebody." "Whom is it to?" said one of the jurymen. "To no one at all," said the White Rabbit. "In fact, there's nothing written on the outside." He unfolded the paper as he spoke and added, "It isn't a letter after all, it's a set of verses." "Are they in the prisoner's handwriting?" asked another juryman. "No, they're not," said the White Rabbit. "And that's the strangest thing about it. He must have copied somebody else's handwriting," said the king. And here's a picture of the rabbit reading it. "Please, your Majesty," said the knave, "I didn't write it, and they can't prove I did. There's no name signed at the end." "If you didn't sign it," said the king, "then that only makes the matters worse. You must have meant some mischief, or else you would have signed your name like an honest man." Everyone in the court started clapping. It was the first clever thing the king had said that day. "That proves he's guilty," said the queen. "It proves nothing," said Alice. "You don't even know what the verses are about." "Read them," said the king. The White Rabbit put on his glasses. "Where shall I begin, please, your Majesty?" he asked. "Begin at the beginning," the king said solemnly, "and go on till you come to the end. Then stop." There was silence while the White Rabbit read. "They told me you had been to her, and mentioned me to him. She gave me a good character, but said I could not swim. He sent them word I had not gone. We know it to be true. If she should push the matter on, what would become of you? I gave her 1, they gave him 2. You gave us 3 or more. They all returned from him to you, though they were mine before. If I or she should chance to be involved in this affair, he trusts to you to set them free exactly as we were. My notion was that you had been, before she had this fit, an obstacle that came between him and ourselves and it. Don't let him know she liked them best, for this must ever be a secret, kept from the rest, between yourself and me." "That's the most important piece of evidence we've heard yet," said the king, rubbing his hands together. "So now let the jury Is there anyone who can explain those verses? Asked Alice. She had grown so large in the last few minutes that she wasn't afraid of interrupting him. I don't believe there's any meaning in it. The jury all wrote down on their slates. She doesn't believe there's any meaning in it. If there's no meaning in it, said the king, that saves a lot of trouble, as we should not try to find any meaning. I don't know, he went on, spreading out the verses on his knee and looking at them with one eye. I seem to see some meaning in them after all. Said I could not swim. You can't swim, can you? He added, turning to the knave. The knave shook his head sadly. Do I look like it? He said, which he certainly did not, being made entirely out of cardboard. All right, so far, said the king, and he looked over the verses, talking to himself. We know it to be true. That's the jury, of course. If she should push the matter on, that must be the queen. What would become of you? What indeed? I gave her one, they gave him two. Why, that must be what he did with the tarts, you know. But it goes on. They all returned from him to you, said Alice. And there they are, said the king, pointing to the tarts on the table. Nothing can be clearer than that. Then again, before she had this fit, you never had fits, my dear, I think, he said to the queen. Never, said the queen, fiercely throwing an inkstand at the lizard as she spoke. Then the words don't fit you, said the king, looking round the court with a smile. There was a dead silence. It's a pun, the king added, and everybody laughed. Let the jury give their verdict. The king said for the 20th time that day. No, no, said the queen. Punishment first, verdict afterward. Nonsense, said Alice. The idea of having the punishment first. Hold your tongue, said the queen, turning purple. And here's a picture of Alice and the king and the tarts. And here's a picture of the queen telling her to hold her tongue. I won't, said Alice. Off with her head, the queen shouted at the top of her voice. Nobody moved. Who cares for you, said Alice. She had grown to her full size by this time. You're nothing but a pack of cards. Suddenly the whole pack rose up into the air and came flying down upon her head. She screamed and tried to beat them off, then found herself lying on the bank with her head on the lap of her sister, who was gently brushing away some dead leaves that had fluttered down from the trees onto Alice's face. Wake up, Alice, dear, said her sister. And here's a picture of when the cards were flying at Alice. What a long sleep you've had. Oh, I've had such a curious dream, said Alice, and she told her sister as well as she could remember all these strange adventures of hers that you have just been reading about. When she had finished, her sister kissed her and said, That was a curious dream, dear. Now run in and have your tea. It's getting late. So Alice got up and ran off, thinking while she ran what a wonderful dream it had been. But her sister sat, leaning her head on her hands, watching the setting sun and thinking of little Alice and all her adventures. With closed eyes, she thought back on her own youth. She half believed that she herself was in Wonderland, a bright-eyed little child once again, filled with simple joys and the curious, wonderful dreams of happy summer days. The end. And now I'm going to read about the author. Lewis Carroll. Charles Ludwig Dodgson Lewis Carroll was born in 1832, one of 11 children of a country parson. He was a very bright child and student, but he stuttered, and this bothered him all his life. He attended college at Oxford, went on to teach mathematics there, was ordained as a minister, and remained at Oxford the rest of his life. Although he was snobbish, cranky, and stern, children liked him, and he adored children. In 1862, he took several people, including 3 daughters of a college dean, out on a boat trip, where they were caught in a rainstorm. Later, Alice, the middle daughter, asked Dodgson to tell a story. He made up a funny tale about Alice and some animals in a pool of tears. He included everyone from the rained-out boat trip. Sisters Lorena and Edith were the Lorry and the Eaglet. Dodgson was the dodo. A Mr. Duckworth was the duck, etc. This was the start of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which Dodgson published under the name of Lewis Carroll in 1865. The book was a sensation. Lewis Carroll went on to publish Through the Looking Glass in 1871. He died in 1898. His books went on to change ideas about children's literature forever. And that's the end. So tell someone your favorite part of this book and who your favorite character was and why. Thank you.